Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 136. That's right, 136. Toss, Tristain on Sports Show. Yes, it is your main man, T-Squared, Tristain Thomas. Thank you so very much for joining us. This week, Packers, not only in training camp, but have now made it to the preseason portion. How did they do in their first dress rehearsal against the Bengals? We'll discuss. The Brewers, still somehow, someway in first place. But I still got questions and I still got beef with how they're building the roster. We'll discuss. And then the toss sweep. We got to go over the WNBA standings, a couple of teams clinching a playoff berth. And this wild Michael Oher story. You remember him from The Blind Side? Well, he's telling y'all it's all a lie. We'll get into that. But you all know how we get things started here on Toss. We get things started with the state of the state. Before I do that, I need to give a quick reminder. As we are now in preseason, we are inching ever so closely to the regular season. That is when Toss will be back weekly. When the NFL season returns, obviously we're going to have a lot to discuss. Green Bay Packers, moving forward with Jordan Love, getting younger, one of the youngest teams in the league, growing together, building together. We'll have a lot to discuss. We will be back weekly once the NFL season starts. Right now, we're still in our bi-weekly summer schedule, so let's get into it. Let's get to those Green Bay Packers here on State of the State on Toss. Had their first dress rehearsal, as I mentioned before, against the Cincinnati Bengals after a mixed practice. Won that game 36-19. The score is not really important. Whether or not they win or lose is really not important. I know a lot of people are making a big stink about this Ravens preseason streak, which quite amazing. It's one of those wild stats, but it's not about the wins or losses, at least for me, when it comes to preseason. You could go 0 for 3. I wouldn't care unless you play terribly. That could be a microcosm for how the season's going to go. Then I would have a lot to feel and a lot to say about it. But they got the win 36-19, as I mentioned, against the Bengals. Obviously, you're playing against a lot of guys who are trying to make the team, a lot of guys who are drafted, trying to get those reps, trying to build themselves into a professional player, learn the ways of the NFL, so on and so forth. This is where you're starting to build your team. This is where you're starting to see where you are, where you need to work, and what type of team you want to become. Now, the big story around the Green Bay Packers is going to be QB1, Jordan Love. It's his show now. He sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, much like Rodgers sat behind Favre for 3 years. Now, again, I am not making the comparison that they're going to be Hall of Famers or he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I didn't even think that Aaron Rodgers, or I won't say I didn't think he was going to be a Hall of Famer. I didn't know. As I mentioned before, right here on this program, you don't know for sure who's going to be a Hall of Famer. You can have a guy who was all-world in college, and they just don't get the NFL game. They either don't get it, they don't produce at the level that you thought they would. Maybe they had some injury misfortunes. You don't automatically say that guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. You just don't know. You just don't know. So, no, I didn't know that Rodgers would be a Hall of Famer coming off of another Hall of Fame quarterback in Brett Favre, who nobody knew he would be a Hall of Famer. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Jordan Love is going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to go out there and tell you that he's going to put up Pro Bowler stats, MVP stats. We'll get into more about my expectations for this team as the season actually begins. But I'm not looking for Hall of Fame play out of Jordan Love. I'm looking for competent play. I'm looking for smart play. I'm looking for him to move the chains, keep the offense moving, putting points on the board. And that's exactly what he did Friday night against the Cincinnati Bengals in their first preseason game. Jordan Love, 7-10, 46 yards, and a touchdown to Romeo Doubs, who, if he can stay healthy, pair him with Watson, that's a good 1-2 punch at the wide receiver position. He shores up some of those drops he can be a good one. Nice catch, nice throw by Love, nice catch by Dobbs on that touchdown play. Good work by him. He made some really good decisions with the football. Went through his progressions, read the defenses very well. I was very pleased with what I saw out of Jordan Love in his 10 passing attempts. Very pleased with what I saw. This is what you want. If you're Matt LaFleur, head coach, Green Bay Packers, this is what you want. Him poo-pooing in the media, oh, well, it's not that you didn't see a true Matt LaFleur offense with Aaron Rodgers underneath there. Yes, it is. We all know it is. Again, I have had this confirmed to me. So he can put out the coach speak, but the tape speaks louder than the coach speak. With Jordan Love, a guy who was nowhere near as experienced as Aaron Rodgers was. You talk about a guy who won 4 MVPs. You talk about a first ballot Hall of Famer. You talk about a Super Bowl champion. You talk about a Super Bowl MVP. He's done it all. With a guy that is not as experienced as Rodgers was, you're going to have a little bit more of coachability within this player. You're going to have a guy who you can say, hey, we need to stick to this script. In order for us to be successful, these are the things you need to do. Now, an advantage to that is it's not like he's coming in completely fresh. Doesn't know the playbook, doesn't know the plays, he has a mastery over the playbook. He's been within LaFleur's system for 3 seasons. It's just now he's starting. Now he's QB1 on a weekly basis. He's getting those important reps, and now he is leading the team as the quarterback. Big responsibility, but it's not like he does not have a knowledge of this offense. But you will see more of what Matt LaFleur wants to do on offense moving forward. There is absolutely no question about that. If you go, and I mean, once the season starts going, I think it would fit a little bit more for that. But if you compare tape from when Rodgers was there under LaFleur, and you get a few games under the belt with Jordan Love being QB1, and you compare the tape, I'm telling you, you're going to see something completely different offensively than what you did with Aaron Rodgers. And it's not because Aaron Rodgers could do things with the football that most others can't, including Jordan Love. It's because you have a guy who was a grizzled vet, done everything, won everything, and a guy who has not started consistently, had a start, but has not been to QB1, does not have the first team reps and the responsibility of being QB1. Those are the only differences. So you're going to have a little bit more coachability. You're going to have the ear and the mind of this guy far more than you would of Aaron Rodgers. And you're going to see truly a Matt LaFleur offense. At times, under LaFleur, Rodgers would run the offense the way it's meant to be run. That's when you saw this team putting up the rushing yardage that they did. Huge rushing yardage games that they did when they would get into a groove. And this ever since LaFleur got there from his first season. They would get to a groove for a few weeks where they're just running over everybody, and then you have the guy go back and drop back 30-plus times, passing the football all over the place, forgetting about the run game. They just had those grooves where, okay, this is a Matt LaFleur offense. This is what they want to do. And then it just dissipates with Rodgers. With Love, I think you're going to see more of the rushing attack. Again, they're trying to build their football team similar to how the 49ers have built theirs because of that influence. LaFleur, having worked with and under Kyle Shanahan, that's where he took his influence from. They want to run the football. They want to pass to keep the chains moving. but they want to physically dominate you with an offensive line, just bullying you, running all over you with Jones, with Dillon. Having that threat to stretch the field with two good wide receivers in Dobbs and Watson, much like 49ers have Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Except the Niners have a game-breaking tight end named George Kittle, and the Packers don't really have that on the roster currently. Who knows? Maybe somebody will develop into that. We don't know. But you will see much more of a Matt LaFleur offense. Now, I say that because in this game, it was really balanced. You had 27 passes. Excuse me. You had 36 passes. You had 26 runs. That's pretty balanced. No, not quite 50-50, but pretty balanced. You're saying Love went 7 for 10. Clifford was really up and down in that ball game. He went 20 for 26, pretty efficient, 208 yards. He threw a touchdown, but he also had 2 interceptions, one of them being a pick 6. So those are the highs and lows that we all expect from Clifford. Yeah, he's a rookie, but we all scratched our head when that draft pick was made. But he's very much in the running for that backup spot. That backup spot is going to be very important. It's going to be vital because you don't know about the durability of Jordan Love. So that competition for the backup spot is just imperative. Huge. But Jordan Love, a nice night. Like I said, Clifford up and down as we expected from him. A little bit more balanced. We spoke about the run game. Emmanuel Wilson, 6 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, an 80-yard touchdown run to close it in the fourth quarter. Amazing work by him. Good line work, great blocking on that play, but really pretty decent blocking all night. Packers didn't really take care of the football. They had 3 turnovers. But defensively, they were opportunistic. They were able to get 2 interceptions of their own. And you only gave up 19 points. Again, you're not playing against all the starters. Obviously, Burrow's still nursing his injury, trying to get back to health. Was not out there. But it's preseason. You got a lot of guys who are trying to make this squad, trying to make the right plays, the routine plays to get themselves noticed and say, hey, I'm going to be reliable, but I'm also going to be able to go out there and make the big splash plays as well. But it's all about being consistent. Overall, a pretty nice dress rehearsal. You always like to get the win. It doesn't matter if it's preseason. It doesn't matter if it's regular season, if you're the players. But for me, it's nice that they got the win, but it's more about how they played. And I felt that there was a pretty good, nice dress rehearsal. The first one, they'll have another one upcoming on Saturday at Lambeau against the Patriots. You have to figure that the first unit is probably going to play a good chunk of that game, maybe the full first quarter, because the second game is pretty much what the third game in preseason used to be. It used to be pretty much a full game, a regular season game. It's really the last opportunity to kind of get finely tuned and get ready for the regular season. And that third game's for guys who are right on the cusp of making the team and just need to make some plays to kind of make themselves stand out. Well, now you got the second game. Who knows how long the starters will play, how many starters will play. You have to think it's going to be a good chunk of time. You'll see those guys get some good reps, see if they can take another step forward in the building of this ball team. But overall, a nice dress rehearsal. Again, 36-19 win in preseason against the Bengals. Jordan Love, efficient, very good. Emmanuel Wilson ran all over the Bengals. Great game breaking speed, but you got to give props to the offensive line. Just overall a nice dress rehearsal. Continuing here on Toss State of the State, let's talk Milwaukee Brewers. First place in the NL Central, still somehow, some way, the Milwaukee Brewers. I believe they're up 3.5 games over Chicago and Cincy. Yes, the suddenly hot Chicago Cubs. We all thought it was going to be the Cardinals that made that type of a run. No, somehow, some way it's Chicago. Trying to push for a wild card, but most importantly, trying to push for the division. But the Brewers, as we said, still in first place. Somehow, some way, 65-54 entering Monday's action. It, 8-4 since the trade deadline, and it's not like they did anything earth-shattering. I'll be honest with you. All of the moves they made to me were meh. One of them was like, why? And I know you all get tired of hearing me say this when I talk about the Brewers every single week, but I told you that I'm going to keep saying it until we see some actual change. You cannot come into the new season with that same offense. Can't do it. Cannot do it. But what do the Brewers do? They did that, and they continue to do so. When they traded for Carlos Santana, which I mentioned on this program a couple of weeks ago, I said it was feast or famine yet again. You're trading for the same guys and expecting a different result, and it does not come. Santana ain't working any better than any other option that you had at first base. Over his last 10 games, Santana is 8 for 43, 2 home runs and 3 RBI. Let me hit you with that one more time. Over his last 10 games, Carlos Santana is 8 for 43, 2 home runs, 3 RBI. A lot of offers in there. This is simply not getting it done. But these are the types of guys that you keep trading for. How is that any better than Rowdy Tellez? How is that much better than most anybody on the roster? The only people who have shown themselves to be consistent for the entire season or the entire time they've been on the team. Christian Yelich, who has refound himself. Again, he's not hitting for the awesome power that we saw him with. He's not hitting the 30 and 40 plus home runs and over 100 RBI and over 300 average, a high 300, 330s, all that. But he's been extremely consistent. High 290s. He'll get to 20 home runs. He may get to 80 some odd RBI. He's getting on base. He's stealing bases. Still playing very good defense. He solidified that spot in the leadoff spot, setting the table for this team. It's just too bad they don't really have the hitters to really drive him in. And the other guy who's been consistent the entire time he's been on the roster is Sal Frelick. He just got called up not long ago. Talk about a rookie. I know Monasterio's been a little bit better. He's been hitting the ball pretty well over the past few games and all that. But overall, you look up or down that lineup, and who really scares you? There's nobody you point to and say, yeah, we're walking that guy. We can't allow that guy to beat us. Maybe they say that about Yelich, but Yelich is setting the table, and his game has changed. He used to be that guy right in the middle of the lineup. Be like, yeah, we can't let this guy beat us. And he will beat you anyway. Different guy now. Still a very good player. Maybe not MVP level. But still a good player. But this is what I'm talking about. Despite Santana being 8 for 43 in his last 10 games, the decision makers are going to say, well, you know what? Yeah, that's unfortunate, but we're not changing the damn thing we do because it's working. We're 8-4 since the trade deadline. We're 65-54 on the season. We're in first place of our division, up by 3.5 games. Our pitching is finally getting healthy. Wade Miley came back not long ago. Woodruff came back. He's had 2 starts, and they've been both quality starts. Willie Peralta. Why do I keep saying Willie Peralta? I'm so stuck on Willie Peralta. Fastball Freddie Peralta. excuse me, has been much better as of late. You know what you get out of Burns. You get good starts out of those guys. You try to shorten the game up to get to Devin Williams at the back end. So the decision makers are going to say, well, you know what we're doing is working. We don't need to change anything. And I'll say to you this, it will work in the regular season because you have bottom feeders. Now, this is a team that got swept by the A's, who have the worst record in all of Major League Baseball a few months back. But for the most part, you can feed on those bottom feeders and you can continue to win series, 2 out of 3 games, 3 out of 4 games. You can sweep teams, as the Brewers did the White Sox over the weekend. Swept them over the weekend series. It's okay to do so in the regular season. The postseason is a completely different story. And the thing is, you're not even guaranteed that. You're up 3.5 games in your division. The Cubs are trying to chase you down. Since he's trying to chase you down, they're within striking distance. The NL wild card is just that, wild. You may or may not find yourself in that spot if you cough up the division lead. And if some of these guys don't get more consistent, and I don't mean consistently bad, I mean if they're consistently decent, you may be able to pull away with the division. But what you do in the postseason, I have no idea. But it's okay to do so in the regular season. You can put together an inconsistent lineup and scrap out wins. This ball club, believe it or not, is second in the majors in one-run games. They're 24-10. That's second in the majors. So they find a way to win. There is no doubt they find a way to win. You saw that on Friday night when they erased a deficit to force extras and win that ball game 7-6. So yes, in the regular season they find a way, and could that translate to the postseason? It hasn't. Not with the way they consistently construct this roster. Had a winning record last season, didn't even make the playoffs. Season before that, failed in the wild card game. Something's got to change. You need to get better hitters in there. If you're trying to do anything as far as winning a championship and currying the favor of the public and the fans of the Brewers in the state of Wisconsin, but especially Milwaukee, who you are pretty much trying to strong arm into giving you $448 million to make improvements to AmFam Field. Otherwise, you're going to start looking for relocation. You need to put consistent hitters on this team and actually give yourself a chance at a real playoff run, a real championship run. Not just division championships. I'm talking about World Series championships. Your pitching is good enough. The bullpen is good enough. Defense, yeah, I mean, they're okay. Not great, but they're okay. But the hitting is atrocious, and that's what's going to hold them back as the offense. And yes, things grind to a halt come postseason. But that does not mean it grinds to the halt where you score nothing and the other team needs to scratch across one run. They get that run, and there's nothing you can do because you can't muster up your own run. Just understand I say this hoping I'm incorrect, but this is what's going to be their downfall, is that inconsistent offense, are those inconsistent hitters. There's only so much Yelich can do. There's only so much a rookie and Sal Frelick can do. Some of these other guys are going to have to up their performance and up their consistency. Otherwise, even if they make the postseason, it's going to be one series and done. That's the state. Packers, good first dress rehearsal, 36-19 win over the Bengals. Jordan Love was good. I saw what I needed to out of him, making good decisions with the football. That's exactly what you need going into the season. And the Brewers, yeah, again, they're in first place somehow, some way, but if they're going to continue to hit like this, which is barely, they're not going to go anywhere come postseason. I'm hoping I'm wrong. It's time for us to run the tall sweep. Facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. It's your home for the Toss on Facebook page. Touch on a lot of things there that we don't get a chance to do here on the show. That's Facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. That's TON Sports Show. Follow us there. The WNBA is getting close to the end of the season. Most teams have played about 30 games. 40-game season, getting close to postseason. And, obviously there's one team that's head and shoulders above the rest. Of course, I'm talking about the Aces. They got a franchise high in wins in Sunday night's game as we record this program on a Monday. They're now 27-3. They've already clinched the playoff spot. They did so, I believe, about 2 weeks ago. The New York Liberty just joined them just a couple of days ago, clinching a playoff berth. They're the only two teams at this point who have clinched a playoff berth. Liberty being 24-6. Stewie is going off. If I had to have a top two for MVP of the league right now, it would be Asia Wilson 1. It would be Brianna Stewart number 2. And I think that vote's going to be extremely close. Extremely close. But I believe honestly, it's a 2-horse race. You could put Alyssa Thomas in there. AT's been phenomenal for the Connecticut Sun, who are sitting in the 3rd spot. Liberty in the 2nd spot. But you obviously can put her in there. She's been phenomenal all season long. But, I mean, you're talking about the 2 top teams, and you're talking about Asia, who's the current reigning MVP 2 times over. Part of the reigning champion, Aces, who look to be steamrolling to another championship, but we don't know. Anything can happen in the postseason. For me, it's a 2-horse race. It's Wilson and Stewart currently. As we mentioned, Connecticut 21-9. They're in the 3rd spot currently. And obviously, this is going into Monday's action as we're talking. The Dallas Wings, 16-14. They're holding down the 4th spot. Again, that's a team that I felt would take a couple of steps forward. And they've been a little bit inconsistent, but for the most part, I think they've taken a positive step forward. The Dream, sitting in that 5th spot there, and this is when you get to the teams that are under 500. They're at 15-16. Minnesota in the 6th spot, they're 14-16. The Mystics, who were much higher earlier in the season, after EDD's injury, they hope to get her back very soon. They've just been kind of free falling. They're still in the playoffs. If they were to start today as a 7 seed at 14-16, but if they lose any more games, I mean, it's not exactly open and shut that they're going to make it. Yes, they're 14-16. The team behind them in the 8th and final spot for the playoffs, if they were to start today, is the Chicago Sky. They're 12-18. So you're talking a couple of games out of the 7th spot or the 6th spot, and quite possibly the 5th spot, with the Dream being 15-16. So, and you got some games to do it. So if one of those teams get hot, and you're talking right behind them with the same record, talk about the Sky. The Sparks are 12-18 as well. I believe, on tiebreakers there. They're the ninth seed because I believe Chicago did beat them. Then in the 10th spot, you got Seattle, who's 9-21, Phoenix, who's 9-21. The Fever, who I thought would be way better this season. They just haven't really been able to put it together consistently. Leah Boston has definitely gotten a hold of the pro game. There's no question there. They're 8-23, worst record in the league, last place. I don't see them making a run to make to the playoffs. But it's like you just don't want to count out Seattle and Phoenix. Yes, they're both 9-21, but the Sky and the Sparks are 12-18. You talk about the Sky holding down that 8th spot. I mean, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that if one of those teams get hot and one of those teams gets cold, that they could be overtaken for that 8th spot. Do I foresee it happening? They have not been consistent enough. And we're talking about, the Seattle and Phoenix have not been consistent enough to really overtake the Sky, who are at 12-18. But you can't count them out. They're not mathematically eliminated. But like I said, it's looking like the Aces are steamrolling to another championship. But I am hoping for an Aces Liberty finals. We get to see them in the Commissioner Cup game on Tuesday night. Aces defending Commissioner Cup champions. Anytime these two teams link up, it is must-watch TV. Yes, it was a blowout the last time they faced each other in favor of the Liberty, but it is usually good television when these two teams link up. Looking forward to that Commissioner's Cup game. Looking forward to the playoffs, but there's still a lot to be decided within the standings. Those two teams in the 10th, 11th spots, and that's Seattle and Phoenix, they're not completely out of it. They're not mathematically eliminated. Sky 12-18, Sparks 12-18. They're the 8th and 9th seed, respectively. Chicago better watch their back. They could lose that 8th spot. They could lose their 8th spot. But we'll see what happens. Wrapping up the tall sweep, we got to talk about being blindsided. Michael Oher, whose life story was really the focal point of the film, I believe back in 2009, called The Blind Side. The two he's bringing him in and supposedly adopting him, and after he was just in some of the worst conditions and just dealt a very, very difficult hand with poverty and everything else in his life. Bringing him in and getting him into football, and then he goes to college, and then he gets drafted, plays the NFL football. Well, turns out that, you know what? A lot of this was a lie, according to Michael Oher. Reading straight from a story on ESPN. Says, quote, retired NFL star Michael Oher, who supposed adoption out of grinding poverty by a wealthy white family was immortalized in 2009 movie The Blind Side, petitioned a Tennessee court Monday with allegations that a central element of the story was a lie concocted by the family to enrich itself at his expense. This is wild, but it gets even wilder. The 14-page petition filed in Shelby County, Tennessee, probate court, alleges that Sean and Leanne Tuohy, who took Oher into their home as a high school student, never adopted him. Remember, that was a big part of the story, that they adopted him. Apparently, he says they never adopted him. Instead, less than 3 months after Oher turned 18 in 2004, the petition says the couple tricked him into signing a document making them his conservators, which gave them legal authority to make business deals in his name. Just chill out, folks. It gets even wilder. The petition further alleges that the Tuohys used their power as conservators to strike a deal that paid them and their two birth children millions of dollars of royalties from an Oscar-winning film that earned more than $300 million, while Oher got nothing for a story that, quote, and this is him saying it, that would not have existed without him, end quote. In the years since, the Tooheys have continued calling the 37-year-old Oher their adopted son and have used the assertion to promote their foundation as well as Leanne Toohey's work as an author and motivational speaker. The lie of Michael's adoption is one upon which co-conservators Leanne Toohey and Sean Toohey have enriched themselves at the expense of their ward, the undersigned Michael Oher, the legal filing says. Michael Oher discovered this lie to his chagrin and embarrassment in February of 2023, when he learned that the conservatorship to which he consented on the basis that doing so would make him a member of the Toohey family, in fact, provided him no familial relationship with the Tooheys. Of course, they didn't immediately return any phone calls at ESPN and try to reach out to them all. This is wild. This is wild. And I put it on the Facebook page. Again, facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. Follow us there. I put my thoughts on this on that page. And I said that movie was always off-putting to me. It just felt like something just was not right to me. Some people call it white savior syndrome. Oh, look at this poor black kid. Let's bring him in and let's pump our chest because we did something great for a black kid. It really felt like that. It really felt like, okay, they think, oh, it's such an incredible story. Something don't feel right about this. And the only reason why I even saw this movie, I did not go and seek this movie out. I never went to go to the theaters to see it. I never went to any streaming devices to watch it. I didn't go and get it on DVD. I didn't go get it on Blu-ray. None of that. The only reason why I saw this film, and I've only seen it once, was because I was on a bus tour headed to the Grand Canyon. And that's the movie that they were playing. So at that point, you don't have any choice. You didn't bring any other electric device other than your phone, and you're trying to conserve energy on that because you want to take pictures of the Grand Canyon. So you're left with no other option. You don't want to read a book because you know you're going to fall asleep. So you're left with no other option than to watch the movie that they have on there. And I sat there and I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch this and see what all the hubbub was about. And this was maybe a few years after he had even come out. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, no, this is not this just doesn't feel right to me. And here you are. Here we are. Found out that those folks grifted that man. Allegedly. I have to say that. It's what Michael Oher is alleging. We'll see how this plays out, but it's really sad. And it's just sad. I can't even say, oh, it's validating. It's just sad. No familial relationship. You didn't even adopt him. 18-year-old kid, you having him sign these papers. You gain his trust. You concoct this whole story, knowing that people are going to eat it up, only to take everything from him. And he is the reason for that everything, even though they did have a whole lot before they even came to know him. But, you know, people like that want more. And it seems like they got more. You hope something like that just isn't true. You hope they could come to terms with something that will make him feel like, okay, you use my story. I should be getting something for that story, which he should be. It's his life. But you hope they could come together and just do the right thing. But that story is wild. It's disappointing. But that movie was always off-putting to me. And I know I'm not the only one out there. Y'all let me know on Twitter at I'm sorry. It ain't Twitter anymore. It's X. Let me know on X at the20double, or you can let me know on Threads at the20double about how y'all feel about that, man. Or on the Facebook page. Let me know how you feel about this movie and how you feel about that. It was always off-putting to me, and here we are with this petition in the court, just showing exactly why it was so off-putting. Well, that'll do it for me, y'all. That was episode 136 of Toss Tristain on Sports Show. You know where to find me on social media. I just said it. On Threads at the2. Well, I don't know if it's T squared or at the20. Just follow me, Tristan Thomas, on Threads. Follow me on X at the20double. Follow me on Fanbase at the20double. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Tion Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. I'm everywhere, y'all. Follow the journey. But especially on TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T Squared, Tristan Thomas, reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. I'll talk to y'all in a couple of weeks, but until then, so long from Toss.